This episode of D-News is brought to you by the Toyota Prius. Let's lead the way. Are hybrid cars really such a new thing? Nah, they've been around for over 100 years. Hey everybody, thanks for watching D-News. I'm Trace. In our fast-moving tech world, automobiles have come a long way, baby. But engineers have been working hard for more than 100 years to make sure that these things on the road today are awesome. In 1834, Michael Faraday came up with the idea that running an electrical current through a coil could create a magnet. And that same year, Thomas Davenport, a blacksmith from Vermont, used primitive batteries to create the very first electric motor. By the 1850s, Congress had attempted to build an all-electric train from DC to Baltimore, but the batteries, they sucked. Does that sound familiar? By the 1880s, electric motors, power lines, and batteries allowed for electric trams and trolleys in England, and in 1897, electric cars were first used for commercial taxis in New York City. That being said, of course, by 1900, only 38% of all US automobiles were electrical. Steam and combustion engines were really popular, but it wasn't because electrical engines weren't good. The Baker Motor Company created an electric car that went 120 miles an hour at the time, but those batteries though. I assume you see where this is all going, of course. In 1900, the very first hybrid car was created to get the best of the batteries and the gas together at last. It was called Semper Vivus, or Always Alive, and was invented by an Austrian named Ferdinand Porsche. It could run using gas, the batteries, or both. It was four-wheel drive for the first time and had four-wheel brakes, also for the first time. But thanks to low gasoline prices, stock crashes, cheap gas, and two wars, the hybrid car fell by the wayside in the early 20th century. That all changed in the 1970s when the gas crisis hit. People got wise. By the 90s, hybrids started appearing in dealerships, and the first Toyota Prius, for instance, was introduced in Japan in 1997. The benefit of the hybrid has to do with problems with inertia. As you may remember from the Bill Nye show, inertia is a property of matter, whereby an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest. Overcoming inertia is not awesome for gas engines. When a car begins moving, a gas engine has to work very hard to overcome that inertia. Gasoline motors being what they are, this is super inefficient. But for highway driving, gas is great. A full gasoline engine can create a max of about 100 kilowatts of power, but it only needs around 7.5 during highway driving. This means that the engine efficiency is pretty low. Hybrids usually have smaller engines, augmented by electricity, which means they're using more of their engine to go the same speed. In a hybrid, the engine is about 1/4 the size or less, but still has a good amount of power overall. This is good because electric motors are crappy at sustained driving, but good at bursts of speed. During sustained driving, an electric motor would have to be working hard all the time to keep you going. Thus, on a highway or country road, they would use massive amounts of energy to keep those wheels moving. So instead, this smaller gas engine takes over, and that's where we get the hybrid. Electric motors can handle the frequent stops and starts with a lot less energy too. Combined together, efficiency wins. Even in the early 1900s, Porsche knew this, allowing drivers to choose to turn off the combustion motors in the Semper Vivus and use only the electrics, or they could use both. Today, we are seeing more and more efficient batteries, smaller, more efficient engines, and more hybrids, even plug-in hybrids, which use even less gasoline. Most modern hybrids also capture a lot of energy, taking the kinetic energy of braking, coasting, or going downhill, and converting that back into electrical energy. But the question remains, are these cars really more efficient? When you take into account all the carbon footprint of battery making, shipping, driving, burning fossil fuels, and so on, the University of Illinois says yes. Electrical cars pollute about 1/10 as much as an all-gas car, hybrids about 1/8 as much. If I asked in 1998 if a regular dude would buy a hybrid car, I've been laughed out of the room because that was for the hippies. But for now, it might have changed. What do you think? Let us know down in the comments and subscribe for more D-News every day of the week. Thanks for watching. This episode of D-News is brought to you by the Toyota Prius. Let's lead the way.